Board Game Vibe, and today we're going to do Carcassonne. Do we really need another video on Carcassonne? Why not? Carcassonne is particularly of interest to me. It was my first board game which started me on this slippery slide down. And I think if you're new to the hobby, Carcassonne is possibly one of the best games to get into. An eye-opener from your standard Monopoly Risk days. So let's get a vibe for Carcassonne. Carcassonne is actually based on a real place. If you've ever been, I haven't, one day plan to, hence I've already got the paper. It's somewhere north of Australia, let's put it that way. Carcassonne itself consists of little tiles, so one of the great eye-openers is it's not actually a board, it sort of develops in front of you. You have these little wooden things called meeples, and you add tiles one at a time. For me, it goes through three phases. When you first play the game, it's almost like a jigsaw puzzle. It's fantastic, just lining things up. Then you move on to the next section when you work together as a team for the aesthetics, I guess, of completing cities and completing roads. And then finally, the third stage of Carcassonne is when it just becomes a wonderful backstabbing, setting up, locking people into cities game. Another great thing about the game, it scales very well. The original base game is 2 to 5, works as a game at both ends, plus differently. A 2 to 2 player, it's more one-on-one obviously, but 5, the need for loose alliances for you to win. In the version I have, it came with the expansion of the river. I don't think the new versions come with that now. Take it or leave it. I tend to leave the river expansion and leave it for the vanilla thing. One thing about Carcassonne, it has a nice little scoring sheet which goes to 50, but most games tend to win with more than 50 points, so it's a strange way of having a scoring board. I know with my version, there's still some floating around, you tend to get two sets of rules. The ones that I got came on the left hand side, and the ones you get from the website are on the right. The important thing is that the rules have changed somewhere in Carcassonne's history about scoring of farmers. I won't get into the actual game itself because there's enough of that on the web, but important that you, I guess, follow the correct or more recent scoring. It does seem to work a bit better for me. The game itself is great, but really kicks off with a necessary expansion, which is the Inns and Cathedrals expansion, which introduces the concept of a 6-player, the grey pieces, which and the game still works with, and cities and inns and meeples, an extra meeple twice the size. So for me, this is where Carcassonne begins and ends, because I think it's almost the perfect game with the Inns and Cathedrals expansion. But if you get a bit taken away, you can start getting other expansions. So some of the smaller ones are the Count, which does come with a nice little wooden piece there. Don't mind that expansion. Then you've got things like Kings and Scouts, not a fan of that one. And then you can get things such as the Big Box, where all different expansions. This is the older one. I think there's others as well. I enjoyed the Tower and that expansion, but seriously, I think the game, if you're buying this for the first time, just buy the base box, maybe in Cathedrals, and spend a couple of years enjoying the game and possibly doing different mechanisms. Though I wish I'd taken my advice, because I kept buying. There's a different game itself, which is more a 2-player. This is Rainer Knizia's attempt to put his spin on Carcassonne. It's not bad. It's a 2-player version with different tiles and stuff. Worth a bit of feel and interest in the game. Then, of course, there was the standalone Hunters and Gatherers, which supposedly people think of as Carcassonne version 2. I enjoyed it, but I must admit, given the choice, I'd go back to the base game that introduces concepts of hunters and these little hunts, etc. But take it or leave it, to be honest. And finally, is it the Jump the Shark, or did it actually work? The Kids of Carcassonne, which was actually, I think it's a great little game for introducing kids, and fantastic feel. I think a good effort went into doing this game. So I actually haven't talked about the mechanism as such, but there's enough on Planet Universe to define that. But Carcassonne, it's a fantastic little entrance to the game. I guess it's now more of a system rather than a individual game itself. But essentially, getting to this first game, you cannot go wrong getting Carcassonne.